A new campaign group's been launched to campaign against government plans for a new law to tackle so-called extremism. The Christian Institute will lead or help lead the Defend Free Speech movement amid fears any legislation could mean street preachers could face court. Campaign Director Simon Calvert joins us on the line now. Good afternoon to you, Simon. Thanks for spending some time to have a chat with us.
It's a pleasure.
What is the point in this campaign group? What do you want to achieve?
Well, Defend Free Speech is concerned specifically with government proposals to bring in what are called extremism disruption orders. Now, these ostensibly are designed to help tackle the rise of terrorism, but the problem is, from what we've heard so far from the government, they're going to be drafted so widely that they could actually be used to cut across the freedom of speech of all kinds of ordinary people. They could really get in the way of legitimate debate, and they could seriously hinder the work of legitimate campaign groups. And so whilst we all share, rightly of course, the government's concern to tackle terrorism, we don't think that necessarily every idea that's proposed in the name of tackling terrorism is exactly right, and so we are campaigning to try and get the government to think again about its approach to this.
Do you think the government is actually interested in those other areas of life, street preachers, Christian campaign groups? Do you think they actually really are fussed about that? Surely this is all about terrorism for them.
Well, the campaign is more broadly based than just Christians, of course. I mean, the two founding groups of the campaign are the Christian Institute and the National Secular Society, two groups that could barely be more different. But the one thing that we share is a commitment to free speech. And there are others too, people like Peter Tatchell, the gay rights campaigner, and there'll be politicians from the left and right, liberals and conservatives, who will agree with us about the importance of protecting free speech for everyone. It's not only concerned with Christian street preachers. Yes, the government ostensibly, of course, they talk about full-blown terrorism, but as being the target of this. But when they talk about how they want to define the offence, they use very vague language. I mean, the Prime Minister himself spoke about saying, telling people, so long as you obey the law, we'll leave you alone. He said as a failed approach. Well, actually, so long as you obey the law, the authorities leaving you alone. I mean, that's the whole fundamental basis of our rule of law. You can't have laws which are so vague that you can just pick up anybody you want. You can't have a law which is so broad that it can catch almost anyone and just have it on the basis, trust the government, they'll only use it against the bad guys. That's not how we do civil liberties in this country. We define our laws very precisely so that everybody knows who is and is not caught by it.
Simon, I wonder, do you think that this is deliberate by the government, that this is such an open field that the government planned to do that so that they could, if they needed to, use this law in certain circumstances that are not related to Islamic terrorism?
I don't think there's any conspiracy. I think there is, in some parts of government, a phenomenal ignorance about civil liberties and about religious freedom. I'm afraid I do think that. I think the leak last week that they're talking about having a register of state-approved religious leaders just tells you that there are some people in government coming forward with policy proposals who are profoundly ignorant about civil liberties, profoundly ignorant of our history and our past. And so I think there is a real problem with people not thinking about the impact of the proposals that they're putting forward. The problem is when you have this view, well, something must be done. And so politicians who are, understandably always thinking about the next election, want to be seen to be doing something. But that's not a good enough reason for bringing forward a law. You actually have to seriously want to solve the problem. And so a very specific, targeted, focused law to deal with genuine terrorism, nobody would argue against that. And as a matter of fact, we have dozens of laws on the statute book already to deal with the real problems at the root of terrorism. The question we should be asking is not what new laws do we need, but why aren't the authorities using the laws that we already have?
To get to the crux of the issue, what is the worry here? Are you worried that people will be criminalised, or are you worried that people will be scared to speak about their views or because of fears about that? Is that what the main issue is?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I think the answer is both. I think that there is a genuine fear that extremism disruption orders will be drafted so broadly that they could be used to, that you could end up with, people that you and I respect in the Christian community having an EDO slapped on them. Because, let's be honest, that word extremist, what does it mean? It gets bandied around all the time now. I was labelled an extremist yesterday by somebody who disagrees with me about this issue. We have to be very careful about having a law which is designed to tackle extremists, because in one sense, an extremist is somebody to the political left or political right of me. An extremist is somebody who's more liberal or more conservative than me. That's not an adequate basis for law. So I think there is a real risk of people being criminalised. But yes, as you said in your question, there is also a genuine concern of the fear factor. And what we would like to encourage is an environment and a law and a culture in which people feel confident to be able to express their views, in which people feel that there is an open space in which you can genuinely have a good debate. And I've said that this campaign is a joint effort between the Christian Institute and the National Secular Society, and in that rather unusual relationship that we've formed over the years with them, that's what we believe in: robust debate. I know what I believe. Keith Porteous-Wood from the National Secular Society knows what he believes. We are very much at odds on a whole range of subjects, but we can have a debate. We can strongly disagree, but we can still remain friends. People need to stop being afraid of free speech.
Finally, Simon, what have you heard from MPs on this? Being realistic, is there any chance this could be defeated in the Commons?
I think that many MPs from the governing party will be concerned about this, and certainly we have heard from some Conservative MPs who would share our concerns. I think that many MPs in the opposition parties too will be concerned to properly scrutinise these proposals. I'm not going to make any predictions about what will happen in votes in the House of Commons, but as we've seen recently, the government can't be certain of always getting its way there. As for the House of Lords, I'm pleased to be able to say that year after year, bill after bill, the House of Lords has shown itself very willing to stand up for freedom of speech. We worked with the National Secular Society on the campaign to reform Section 5, the law against insults, which was being used against atheists and street preachers, and the House of Lords voted in huge numbers to amend that law. We also saw the House of Lords vote to against a law to make it illegal to be annoying in a public place. Believe it or not, the government really did try to make it illegal to be annoying in a public place, and the House of Lords voted to severely restrict that. So I think that there is a strong majority in the Lords for freedom of speech.
All right, Simon Calvert, Campaign Director at Defend Free Speech. Thanks very much for joining us on the News Hour today. Interesting to get your thoughts on this. Thank you very much.